Morning. How are you guys doing? Good, good. All right. So obviously, we're doing superpowers. I don't know if you can read it. It's flying with a question mark. Any flying? Any flyers? Okay, yeah. Okay, all of those of you who said, yeah, keep your hands raised, flying. Yeah, okay. How many of you are also scared of heights? See, I am too. That's why. Lynn, yes. So I put a question mark because I'm like, I'm good, but I'm scared of heights. So how's that gonna work? And also, you know this with all superhero movies and scenarios, there's always a moment where your superpower goes away. You know what I'm saying? And I'm just thinking, I'm up there doing my thing, with or without cape, I'm not quite sure, okay? And all of a sudden, I have no powers. What happens? I'm not indestructible, I'm not Superman. It's over. So I should have put hovering. That's what I'm gonna do. I just wanna hover. That's my superpower. But hey, thanks for playing along. We've been in a series called Creating Home, and we're just trying to do that. We're trying to have some conversations, get to know each other a little bit more. But our big idea, though, is to help each other foster healthy, deep relationships. And so those are the conversations we're trying to have. And so what we've been doing is we've been talking about certain kinds of cultures that we're trying to create in our homes, in our church, in our workspaces, to be better at creating home. Because home is not where the heart is, but home, you take home with you wherever you go. It's not just a space, a place, but if we can learn to do that, we can learn to create healthy cultures. In fact, if our church does that, and churches do that, it would be an amazing, beautiful place. So recently, though, I got reminded of how when I go out and speak at different places, people react a different way, Sometimes I go and I'm speaking in a particular topic, and then other times I'm going and telling them my story, my faith story. And my faith story, if you know, how many of you know my faith story of coming to Jesus? Anybody know? Make some noise? Okay. All right. Couple of people. All right, good deal. So it's kind of supernatural, wouldn't you say? It's a little supernatural. It's kind of out there, right? So I've had all kinds of reactions to it. Some people were like, oh my gosh, it's amazing. Oh my goodness. And then others are like, I don't know about that. In fact, I remember once I got off the stage and this guy came up to me and he's like, oh man. He's like, I don't know if I believe you. And I was like, oh, okay. I was like, what? And then I realized that the more I would go around speaking, there would be times that people would go, I don't believe you. I mean, flat out, people would just say, I don't believe you. And have you ever had that moment, like not speaking, but have you had a moment where someone says, I don't believe you? Like, I don't believe what you're saying. I don't believe you. Does it bother you? Come on. It does, right? I don't believe you. You're like, what? Like maybe you were a kid and someone said, I don't believe you. Maybe you're an adult, I don't believe you. Maybe at work, you're like, you said this, and they're like, I don't believe you. Or they react a certain way, and you're like, they're basically saying, they don't believe you. What does it do to us? What does it do when our kids don't believe us, or other people don't believe us, and we want them to believe that what we are saying is actually true, and they should believe it? What do we do? We're frustrated. We get all kinds of ways, and some of us react a certain kind of way, and that's why I want to talk about being a sacred place. A sacred place. Let's put it on a sacred place to doubt. I want you and I to become a space, create a culture where it's okay for people to doubt. Now that's kind of strange, isn't it? Because we've been talking about being a certain kind of people, right? We talked about being a soft place where people, when they fall, they land where they fall. Being a soft place. Last week we talked about, if you guys anybody remember, being a safe place, safe place to grow, because we want to create a safe place, because we are, as a church, we are a very, very diverse community, and we need grace to grow, because we're not going to get it right, because we don't know where everybody else is, and we need a safe place where we can make mistakes and maybe say, hey, I didn't mean that, or we got to give ourselves grace to do that. We got to create a culture. Today, though, what does it look like for us to create a culture around us, our homes, our churches, that we are a sacred place for people to what? Doubt. What does that look like? And why did I say sacred? Here's why. Because I don't know about you, but growing up, if I did not believe something, if I did not think something to be true, I would be shamed. Like I grew up Middle Eastern, and so we grew up in a very honor culture. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. Maybe you grew up in that. It's an honor and shame culture. So if you don't act a certain way, if you don't believe a certain thing, or if you stop doing certain things, or you have a different opinion about something, there is an instant shame. Some of us grew up in a Christianity that was an honor culture as well. If you don't believe this theology, if you don't believe like this, if you don't subscribe to this, then shame on you. That there's a shame. And I think sometimes we don't even realize, but we grew up in something like that. And when our kids doubt, when they change their mind about a worldview, when they change their mind about values or certain beliefs, maybe even the scriptures, they go, I'm not quite sure if I believe this, or I don't know if I believe that. I'm not quite sure if I trust that. I'm not quite sure. It is easy for us to shame them. And go, hey, well, shame on, like there's a shame culture. So the question is that does God really do that? Because there's a God you grew up with, and then there's a God that Jesus introduces to us. And my God that I grew up with is very different. And maybe your God that you grew up with, not necessarily a different religion, he or it or she or whatever you want to call it, is not okay with doubt. Is spirituality okay with doubt? What does Jesus say about creating a sacred place to doubt? Because Jesus did that. And I believe he created a sacred place because, see, a sacred place is a place where that's holy. And a holy place has no shame. There's no shame. And so when you and I create a culture with shame, we create not a sacred place, not a holy place, but a what? A unholy place for people. And so I wonder if there's a way that God is showing us, and Jesus is showing us, that there is a God out there who loves us so much and wants to have a deep relationship with us, but he's okay with doubt. And in fact, he's going to make sacred moments, spaces for you and I to doubt his not just what he said, but also his heart and his intention. Is God okay with that? And you'll realize it is. He is good with that. Hebrews tells us this. It's the first verse that we're going to jump into. By the way, the notes are in your app if you want to look at those as well. But Hebrews 4, it says, Jesus, what does he say? He does what? He does what? He understands every weakness. He understands every weakness of ours. He does, because he was tempted in every way, but he did not sin. And then it goes on and it says this. It says that so whenever we are in need, what should we do? We should come bravely before the throne of our merciful God. There we'll find what? Undeserved grace. We're going to find undeserved grace there. Like we don't deserve it. And we'll find help there. So there's a intention about God, where the writer of Hebrews says that our this Jesus of ours, this God of ours, he's not a God out there that wants you to always be certain of everything. But he's a God who understands our weakness. He understands what it is. And because I think what we don't realize is this one simple truth about doubt. And I'll put it on the screen for you. Doubt does this. Doubt doesn't have to lead to disbelief. See, we think that. It can actually lead to a what? A deeper belief. And so when you and I have conflict, when you and I are in a relationship, and then we stop, or in a moment we go, I'm not quite sure if I believe this. I'm not quite sure if I don't know. I don't understand why you did this, or I'm not quite sure if I, see this the way you see this. I think my values have changed. I think my worldview has changed. I think my politics have changed. I think all these things have changed. The conflict does not need to end the relationship. Doubt does not need to end the relationship. It does not need to lead to mistrust. It can actually lead to deeper conversations and a deeper belief in the relationship as well. And so if you find yourself doubting God's intention, God's ways, God's existence, if you find yourself going, I don't know what I believe, good. It's a good place to be. Like I tell people all the time, Mosaic is where I want you to lose your faith, so you can find it again. You need to keep on discovering who God is. And there are some certain things you need to stop believing. But you're never going to know unless you go a little deeper into it. So Jesus creates this safe place for us, this sacred place. And when I mean by sacred, I mean he creates a space that when you and I express doubt, he does not shame us. He does not guilt us. He doesn't do that. And he starts by, I believe, he starts by basically redefining doubt to deal with it. That's what he does. He redefines doubt to deal with it. So what's the first thing? How do you redefine doubt? How do you redefine doubt? First thing you do is you realize doubt, regardless of what you've heard, doubt is not. We'll put it on the screen for you really clearly. It is not what? It's not absolute. It's not absolute. It's not right or wrong. It's not like I believe or I don't believe. It's complicated. It's complicated. It's very, very, very complicated. Because the problem is our human temptation is to just go, okay, I'm just going to pretend like I do believe. Like I was talking to a guy the other day about code switching. If you guys know that term, it's right now that term is very much a race conversation, but also it is a conversation where a lot of us kind of participate in and we don't even know. Code switching is basically like you pretend or you don't pretend, but you don't express totally who you are because you're trying to relate to a more majority population or something like that. I've done that as an immigrant, a code switch, and I'm like, hey, I'm just like you. Hey, I'm just like you. Believe me, I'm just like you because I want you guys to like me. Like immigrants and foreigners, if you're in a different nation, if you go somewhere else, you're going to be tempted to code switch because you're like, I want to fit in a little bit. But code switching exists not just in relationships, but I think it actually exists in spirituality. Have you realized that? You're like, I don't think I do that. Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. You know why? Because I've heard some of you pray. You guys don't pray like you talk. All of a sudden, prayer turns into something else. You're like, dear God. Like you use all the spiritual languages or words you know. You have to. You're like, because God does not understand anything else. He does not. And to get his attention, you also have to throw in a verse. So he goes, oh yeah, I'm talking to you. Yes, okay. And you have to say, Lord Jesus, because it could be a lot of Jesuses out there. Like it's amazing to me. And I remember early on as a follower of Jesus, I was like, okay, this is how you do. You have to be reverent. You got a code switch. I wonder if God's saying, are you serious right now? Are you serious right now? You don't talk like that. I mean, I remember going to Pentecostal churches and the pastor would all of a sudden change the way he talked. And I was like, oh my gosh, he's so full of the Spirit. I was like, no, I don't think he is. He's full of something. I don't know what it is. I used to think though, and then I realized, wow, Christians code switch all day long. Some of you guys did that when you parked and now here. You're not the same person. You're not. In the parking lot, you were pretty much a demon. But then somehow you got here. You're like, okay, get it together. Everything's good. All right. I'm not gonna kill her. Okay, we're gonna. And then someone talks to you. How you doing? Great. Oh my gosh. And not Mosaic, but other churches, there's so much of that, right? There's so much of like, hey, man, God is good, right? Oh yeah, God is good. What? All the time, what? God is good. Yeah, everything's great. And we're pretending. Why? Because we think that we have to actually either be good or we're bad, right or wrong. We can't be in the middle. See, doubt lives in the middle. It just does live in the middle. And here's why. Because God knows that you and I can code switch and pretend. You can pretend all day long. But God also knows this, that he cannot have a deep relationship with the person you're pretending to be. He can't. In fact, no one can. I mean, there's a Christian you are and the Christian you pretend to be. And there's a person I am and the person I pretend to be. And our pretend faith is powerless. Our pretend culture at home is just, it's a sham. We're just all pretending because we know that as soon as we are not right, we're wrong. And as soon as we don't necessarily believe, we're unbelievers. Like it's just that's absolute, and with God it's not. There's a story about a guy who comes to Jesus, and he's desperate. He's a dad, and he has tried so much to heal his son, and nothing has worked. Nothing has worked. And he's heard about Jesus, and he goes to him, and he starts talking to him, and he just says, listen, if you can heal him, would you please do it? If you can heal him, would you please do it? Here's what Jesus says. He says, what do you mean if you can? What do you mean if you can? And then he says, all things are possible for one who believes. All things are possible for one who believes. And then the dad says this. He says, I believe, but help me in what? My unbelief. This is interesting because this moment, this conversation this dad's having with Jesus, the dad knows that he needs a miracle that his pretend faith cannot possess. Like your pretend faith and my pretend faith is not going to give me the miracle I need. And so he says the most honest thing. I believe, but help me in my unbelief. Like I'm not either. I don't doubt, but I have serious doubts. And so I want you to know that if you and I are going to create culture, just because someone's not right, they're not wrong. Just because they don't believe right now, that doesn't mean they're unbelievers. That doesn't mean that they're just on the other side here. There's a middle ground of human development that you just you're in the middle. And I don't know about you, but you're in the middle right now. You know who you are. You're gonna keep growing, and there's no absolute. There needs to be time for that, and that's sacred. And what you don't need in this time is anybody to shame you because you have doubts. You didn't shame. The problem is that when Jesus says, hey, everything is possible for those who believe, and he goes, yeah, it is, but I'm not quite sure if I believe. And that honest answer is what heals his son. So, doubt is not absolute. It's also not dangerous. It is not dangerous. It's not dangerous. I know. When I came to faith, I heard there's a phrase called what's it called? Backsliding. Have you ever heard of backsliding? Anybody hear of backsliding? Make some noise if you have. Backsliding. Has anybody told you backslidden? You when I first came to faith, I was like, backsliding, what is that? Is that like moonwalking away from God? Like what does that mean? Like, what is backsliding? Because English was a different language for me. I was like, what is backsliding? They're like, oh, backsliding is when you believe and all that, and all of a sudden you start doing some things. That's not good. And I'll tell you what, backsliding is bad because it's a slippery slope, and it's what? It's dangerous. It leads you down a path. You go, woo, down. And you start believing that stuff, and you start thinking that stuff, it's going to leave you go in a totally different direction. And that's why it's like doubt is dangerous. So you don't want to doubt your theology. You don't want to doubt your tradition. You don't want to doubt your Christian heritage. You don't want to doubt why? Because doubt is what? It's dangerous. It's dangerous, and it's not helpful, and it's going to just go bad. It's just going to go bad. And so what does Jesus do with that? What does he do with that? I'm going to take you to another story. Okay, before we go there, I want to tell you the context. The context is that there is Mary and Martha. Mary and Martha are sisters of Lazarus, and Lazarus gets sick, and he is just not doing well, and they send word to Jesus, and they're like, hey, listen, can you please come and help? And Jesus takes his time and does not show up. He does not show up at all. And so what happens is that when he finally starts coming towards them, like coming, they get word that he's traveling. The two sisters are like, he's already dead. He's passed away. And so out of emotion, about all kinds of emotion, they run towards Jesus. And first one is Martha. And so Martha goes and says this. This is what she says. She says, Lord, if you had what? If you'd been here, my brother would have what? He would have not died. If you had been here, this wouldn't have happened. Like, he is dead because of you. He is dead because of you. Now, I don't know about you, but it takes a lot of courage and a lot of, intentionality and a lot of, relationship to go, I blame you for my son's and for my brother's death. I blame you. Now, I don't know if you lost someone, but it's tough to kind of go, I blame you. Like, this person wouldn't have died if you would have shown up. If you had shown up, this person would not have died. I just want you to know the depth of that relationship where Martha was like, Lord, only, like, what was so important? What was so important? And Jesus took it. He took it. He took it. He didn't think it was dangerous, that Martha was slipping. No, he just took it. And then he did something which I think is so interesting. I don't know if you've ever noticed this. He responds to her and he doesn't say, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. He doesn't say that. What does he say? We'll put it on the screen for you. Here's what he said. He said this. He said, actually the verse, Martha keeps on talking and all that. And he says, I am the resurrection and the what? The life. He goes, I am the resurrection and the life. And the one who believes in me will live. Even though they die, and whoever lives by believing in me will never die. And then he says, do you believe this? At least, do you believe this? So what Jesus is saying is, I want you in the middle of your doubt, number one, I'm just going to bring up the fact of who I am. I'm going to bring up the fact of who I am. I know what this has happened. I know what this happened, like the situation, but I want you to know, do you believe in me though as a person? And I just want to put it out there. I want to basically tell myself this too, that I am the resurrection and the life. Like, I am still that guy. I think what happens is like, I don't know about you, but when people doubt me, I begin doubting who? Myself. I go, maybe my story is not true. Maybe what I'm believing is not true. It takes something from me. If there are people in my life, if there's family members in my life, if there's people, friends in my life, and they doubt me, here's what happens. It bothers me. It bothers me because I'm like, it diminishes and takes away from me. And from here, Jesus is like, this is not taking away from me. I'm just telling you right now, I am the resurrection and the life. And you need to believe this. You need to remember, this situation has gone bad. It's gone super bad and loud, but it's gone bad. But I need you to believe I am still that guy. I'm still that guy. Then the verse continues. What happens next? What happens next? He goes, then what happened is Mary shows up. Mary. The one who is like, man, the person who's like, she knows Jesus. She's been, have had deeper relationships with Jesus. She comes to him and she says the same thing. She reaches him and then she says the exact same thing. She says, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would have what? Not died. He would have not died. He would not die. Same thing, again, not die. So what does Jesus do? He doesn't believe that our doubt is dangerous. He leans into it. He leans into it and he allows space for people to say the things that he needs to say. And then finally, he does this. This is interesting. We realize that doubt is not a sin. Doubt is not a sin. So when you come to God and you go, God, I'm doubting all these things, you have to realize doubt is not a sin. Maybe you grew up in that. Maybe you grew up in a faith that says, you know what, it is sin to doubt. As a Muslim, I grew up in a faith in Islam, and it said basically it was haram. You want to learn a Arabic word? Can you say haram? It's haram. It was haram to doubt God, because Allah, the God that I grew up with, basically said it is sinful to doubt. It's haram, it's shameful, and you offend God by doing that. You take away from God when you do that. It's just sin, and there's something wrong with you. You're sinning if you are doubting. So the question is Mary and Martha approach Jesus and they blame him. He can handle their disappointments. He can handle their frustrations. He can handle all these things. And does he just stop and go, by the way, I just want to mention this to you. You are also sinning. You're sinning by not believing in me. You're sinning by doing this. He does not do that. He does not do that. Because he doesn't believe it's a sin. What does he do? So I'll tell you what he does. He shows up in that moment, and then something happens to him, and it's the shortest verse. It's the shortest verse in the scriptures. Okay? And here it is. This is it. It's 2 words. What is it? He wept. He wept. I just want you to know that his reaction to people doubting him and blaming him, it's because of you, he died. His reaction to doubt, blame, sin is he weeps. Friends, doubting is not a sin. Why? Because it can lead to a deeper faith. It can lead to a deeper conversation. He weeps. He weeps. And the environment is still pretty intense there. It's intense there because it's not just Mary and Martha who are doubting him, it's other people as well. And Jesus continues in the midst of that to create a place where people can be held in a holy space to doubt, because he knows that you and I, when we doubt his existence, when we doubt his character, when we doubt who he is and what he could do for us, he's not going, oh man, it's so offensive right now. I can't believe you're doing this. You and I feel this way. You and I feel this way because it takes away from us. God's like, I have no problem because I'm a mature enough God that's not offended with you doubting me. I'm not insecure. You're not bothering me. You're not doing that when you doubt. What I want you to do is I want you to understand that this could lead, not to disbelief, it could lead to a deeper faith, and you and I have to move towards that. So friends, if you're wrestling with doubts, dig deeper in it. Ask the tough questions about God and to God. If you are wrestling with trying to feel okay with other people, doubting, it's okay. It's okay. You're like, but they take away from me. I know. For me, for raising kids, I mean, man, Ash and I, we've raised, I mean, they're no longer teenagers. They're pretty much adults now. And man, there have been times where like, we blew it. We blew it. It's over. It's over. People have asked us during this whole time and doing church work, they're like, hey, would you ever do a parenting seminar and do all that? I'm like, no, I would not do a parenting seminar. They're like, oh, maybe you should write about it. You write books. And like, I said, if the book, my book title for parenting would be Good Luck. Like that would be it. Like, I don't know. Sometimes I'm like, man, we are amazing parents. And the same next moment where we are the worst parents in the world. Like, I don't know. Why? Because surrounded with people and surrounded in relationships, they're just like people, they wrestle. We wrestle with this. We wrestle with doubts. It's okay. But you and I have to create a sacred place, holy place that has no shame in it for people. Because that's the only way. You have to intentionally create a moment. And Jesus is doing that because he's not done here. So now he weeps, and then the next passage tells us this. So he gets forward, gets closer, and now they're talking about it. Then the Jews said, see how he loved him? He loved him. But man, he loved him, no question about that. And then some of them said, what? He was like, well, could not he who opened the eyes of the blind not keep this person from dying? I mean, there are always those people, right? Like, I thought you were all that. I thought you could. I thought you could. You did. I mean, I thought you could. You obviously don't want to. I mean, there couldn't be more doubt in that space. Jesus walked in with people, everybody doubting. And that's why the next couple of lines are so important. That's why Jesus does something that he's never done before. So he starts praying. And when he starts praying, it's not like an unspoken prayer request. It's not even, he is basically acknowledging who's listening. He says this. Jesus looked up and he said, Father, I thank you that you have heard me. Like another translation says, you always hear me. You always hear me. You always do. You always do. But I'm saying this for the what? For the benefit of the people standing in this moment. This moment is filled with doubt. Everybody doubts my intention, my ability, my existence, all the things I've said. Because of a loss, a disappointment, a grief, they doubt everything. And I'm going to pray this out loud. I'm not saying so you can hear me because I know you always hear me. I'm just saying this out loud for everyone here because I'm creating a moment right here. And I'm doing this for their benefit. That in the middle of everyone's doubt, God can still perform a miracle. Because we've taken it out of context. We've heard passages like, you know what? It's impossible to please God without faith. So if you don't have faith, you what? Displease God. And so we've taken it out of context. And then we've created spaces like that. That everybody in our environment needs to believe the same thing. Our families need to believe the same thing. Our church people need to believe the same thing. Everybody there is no room for what? Doubt. Because when doubt comes in, it's dangerous, it's absolute, it's all those things. It's terrible for you. It's not good. It's a sin. And in the middle of that environment, God cannot move. And here, he says, in this moment, I'm saying this. And he says this. Next verse, he says, I'm saying this because I want them to believe that you sent me. I want them to believe once again that you sent me. And then he says it. He says, Lazarus, come out. And what happens? The dead man comes out. Dead man comes out, his hands, feet wrapped up in strips of linen and a cloth around him. And Jesus said to him, take off the grave clothes and let him go. I wonder if that's symbolic for some of us. I wonder if that's symbolic for us taking off some things in our lives that we have to let go of. I wonder, I know this is morbid, but let's just think about this a little bit. I wonder, what was Lazarus' last few thoughts before he passed away? Do you think he was like, hey, I thought you were going to show up? I mean, Lazarus is not a made-up story. It's a real story. He was a real friend. He saw Jesus do miracles. He also knew that they had sent word. Hey, are you gonna show up? Are you gonna show up? Are you gonna show up? I wonder if Lazarus died in disappointment. I don't know. We don't know. Maybe he died in faith. I don't know. But I think some of us have the potential of spiritually dying in disappointment. Because you are pretending to have a faith that you really don't have. You're pretending to believe God in a way you really don't believe. And because you're convinced that you can't, like doubting is always bad. Doubting is bad. And you haven't realized that now doubting can really lead to a deeper relationship with God. So I want to pray for us that we would, number one, create environments for our kids, for our friends, for our workspace, for our people, for our church. That, hey, it's okay to doubt. It's all right, it's healthy, it's good, because God's in that mess. He's in it. And we have a God, not the God we grew up with the God Jesus tells us about. He is the God who, man, he's very comfortable. Very comfortable, because he knows if we move in the right direction, if we keep on pressing, we will find him and more of him. So let me pray first. Can I do that? Cool. Lord God, I thank you so much for this morning. I thank you for who you are, God. I thank you for intentionally creating culture and space for us, God. God, thank you for showing us that we have to reclaim and reimagine what it means to doubt you, your intention, your existence. God, thank you for being the God that's not offended, that's not upset, not displeased when we are not sure. You're the God who says, give me your best. And sometimes, God, our best is, I believe, but could you help me in my unbelief? God, that tension is where we are and where you want to meet us this morning. Because I believe that if you meet us in this, we'll be able to create that space, that tension in the relationships around us. So we not freak out when people change their views or doubt certain things, God. God, I pray that as you meet us in this place, as we go receive communion or light a candle or just sit here in this moment, God, or go to the cross, we be reminded, God, that you want all of us. And for some of us, God, we just need to be reminded that your promises are still true. You're still that God. So God, I pray, meet us here as we respond.